Hello everyone. This is the final video of this project, and in this video we will build the view stats view. There should be a button on the main game view controller to click to view the stats. That button should take us to the statistics, and you can build this anywhere you want. Simplest way is to display a label that has 4 lines or 4 labels, and you can have some more sophisticated display by adding maybe bar chart or pie chart or any other way you can think of. So feel free to do whatever you want. And I'm gonna follow this simple way and let you to elaborate as much as you can. However, in order to calculate this data in the statistics, we need to calculate the score of the most recent game, which we did in the last video, but we also need to update and increment those different stats. So the highest score, lowest score, game played, and so on. And as we mentioned in the previous video, in the view controller class or file, we calculate the score. Then we will use the user defaults, which is a simple intermediary that is managed by the operating system, and it's available for us to retrieve and use. It is basically a storage that is guaranteed to be available. It's like the post office. You drop something there and somebody goes and pick it up. So we drop the score and the statistics view goes and pick up the score. This is really similar mechanism to what we did in the color picker project number 2. But here there is one additional thing that we will do. We will put in the user default all the statistics that we want. So 4 things we're going to add to the user defaults: highest, lowest, current, and number of games played. Which means I have to give them some initial value and I need to update them. Initial value means that at the very first beginning, when the user first downloads the apps, those scores are set to 0. Then when the user starts playing the game, after the first time the user plays the game, all 4 of them are updated. And every time the user plays the game, every game affects each one of those scores. The number of games played should be increased. The highest score should be checked to see if the most recent game got a higher score or not, and so on. And the recent also will be updated. So we will create our own module, and we'll to do this, to grab the statistics from the user default, the older statistics, compare it with the most recent game, makes the updates, and put it back in the user defaults. Should this happen in the statistics view, or should this happen in the game view controller? The game view controller, that's where the most recent game takes place. So we know what the current game score is, and we know everything about it, its events, and so on. So the update score module should go there, because we can then call it every time a game is played. Whether the user clicks on the statistics view controller or not, the statistics themselves need to be updated. So every time a game is played, the statistics is updated, and then whenever the user wants to click on the stats, they will see the most recent updates. So to increment this or to implement this, we need to do multiple things. First, on the view controller, we'll need to create an update module. Then in the event when the game is over, we need to activate or call or send a message to call on that module. Then we need to create the stats view controller and implement, when the stats view controller is loaded, that we read the data and display the data in 4 labels like this. So let's go ahead and follow them, do that. So first I want to add in the game, there's the play game and the check answer. So find somewhere outside each one of those and add your updated score. So I'm gonna come here and add my update score, and this updates the stats for the game. So this updated score doesn't need to return anything, so get out of the comment block. The return value comes here, void, there's no return value. The name of the module, which is updated score. Does this module need any arguments? Well, you may say that I could have passed the score to it, or we already made the score an instance variable by defining it in the header file, so I don't need anything. So this is the body of the score. The first thing we want to do in this module is to get a reference to the user defaults. So I create my own reference ns user defaults, and then call it anything you want, and then send a message to the class ns user default saying give me a reference to the standard default, which is a shared defaults object. Alright, then get the variable from the user defaults. So I want to get all the statistics variables in here. So all of them will be integers. So to get them, I'll send a message to the defaults and say give me the integer for key, and then now those keys I'm gonna have to define them and stick to them. So you have to come up with a name that you will use for the highest, the lowest, the recent, and the number of games. So I'm gonna call it total games, and I'm gonna use this to say for the number of games, and say give me the integer for that key from the defaults, and take that and assign it to a variable, and I'm just gonna use a similar name so it's not confused. So what this instruction is saying, go to the defaults object, which is the shared object, a reference to the shared object, ask them to give you an integer variable for this key, total games, and take that, assign it to a memory location local to this module of type integer, and give it the name total games. Now, the very first time this game is played, there is no total games in the defaults. So this is going to go to the defaults, look for an integer with that name, will not find anything. Luckily, it will come back with a 0. There's nothing. It didn't find anything. So we take that 0, which is the same initial value we want. This is the same initial value we want, so we can just use that and carry on. And then I will need to update the statistics variables. So I'll say for this total game, if I came here to update the score, I'm going to only come here at the end of a game. So the game has been played, so let's update the total number of games. Then let's save the statistics variables back to the defaults. Now that I updated, use that to update the value in the defaults by sending a message to the default and say set integer. I want you to set the integer with the value existing in total games to the key called total games. Now the key here has to be exactly the same key here. So I'm saying take this value of this variable, local variable that we created, put it in the shared default under this name. If that name doesn't exist, it will create it. If that name exists, it will update it. So now after the first time the game is played, now there's a total games variable there that has 1 as the number of games. Now you play the game again, and you're gonna come here, update the score. You go to the default and say give me the total number of games. Now it became 1. 1 plus 1 is 2, so you update 2 becomes 2 and keep doing that so it always updates. So this is the three things we're going to do for each statistics variable. So the same thing we want to do to the most recent score. So I say integer recent score equal. Actually, I don't need to grab the recent score because I'm not updating the recent score. The recent score will go directly in the save. So I come here and say set integer with the value of a score because I declared it as an instance variable and put it here as recent score. Did you all follow me why I don't need to retrieve it? I'm going to only retrieve the statistics variable that I need to update, increment. So I need to add 1 to the total game. So I need to know what is the total that is there. I need to compare the recent score with the highest score. So I need to figure out what the highest score is. But the recent score, I'm deleting the existing one and adding a new one. So I don't really need to retrieve it. I just need to delete what is there and add a new one. So the second statistics I want to get is the highest score. And I'll do the same. So defaults. And I'll say integer for key. And I say give me the highest scores. I can't reiterate enough the importance of keeping track of those key because that's how we're going to retrieve each one of those variables both here as well as in the stats view. Then we need to increment the highest score or update the highest score. Updating the highest score is a little bit tricky because the highest score is reset to the recent score only if the recent score is higher than the highest score. So I check to see if the recent score is higher than the highest score. If that is the case, then I need to reset. So I say highest score equal score. So I update the value of the highest score with the current score only if the current score is greater than. Then I come here and save that. Say defaults, set integer, and then use the value in the highest score and put it in a variable. And now that variable, that key has to be exactly the same as this key. And I have an S here that shouldn't be. Highest score, highest score. Alright. One more stat, which is the lowest score. And I actually should use lowercase when I define those variables. I shouldn't have used an uppercase here. So let me quickly fix that. So I go to defaults and say give me the integer for key, and that key is my lowest score. Then updating the lowest score. Now the lowest score is a little bit tricky. Why? Because the lowest score, I'll need to do the same. If the lowest score, if my current score is less than the lowest score, then I need to update. I need to say that the lowest score equal the current score. So how about the very first time? The very first time the lowest score is 0. Whatever score you're going to score in the first game, it will never be lower than 0. So if we keep it like that, it will never update from 0. So I have to add a special case. And that special case is the case when the lowest score is 0. And if the lowest score is 0, Or what we can do, we can say if the score is greater equal lowest score, so we put an equal here. So if the score is 0 and the lowest score is 0, then the lowest score equal to the score. But if it is not, then it will be the lowest score. But if the score is equal lowest score, but if the lowest score is 0, yep, that's it. We'll keep it this way. I'm thinking loudly here that in the case when the user never scores 0 but only scores 33%, and that is the lowest score, the 33% will never come here. So we still need to add the case for 0. So I can add this as another if statement. And I can say if lowest score equal 0, and notice that I used 2 equal signs because that's the comparison, not the assignment, then the lowest score equal the score. So if you're starting from 0 but the lowest score is the 33%, then that's what's gonna happen. If the lowest score, if you scored 0 after that, then this will be the case. But this is probably need to be done only this case, because if the user scored 0 later on, that you want that to stay the lowest score and not to be updated. So we need to put another condition here, and the total games equal 1. What this will do, this is called AND, which means it combines 2 tests at the same time. So we're testing that the lowest score is 0. We're also testing that the total games is 1. So this is the very first game. Score is 0, and it is the very first game. You may decide to have a different way of managing those scores, and that is fine with me, as long as it is consistent and as long as you update your help view controller with the instructions that are that has what your method of scoring is. Now come here and save that new score. So use the lowest score and update to the lowest score. So that's the update score module. Now this update score module will put the statistics in the user defaults. Now I need to create my statistics view controller and read those from the defaults and display them in labels. So we can go ahead into our view controller, our storyboard here, and add another view controller, and perhaps I'll do that in another video. This is has gone long than I originally thought, so this is not the final video. There's one more to do the stats view.